There was a time I thought I had men all figured out until an old friend leaned in over coffee and said, "Everything with men shifts after 70. The way they see us, the way we see them. But once you realize this one thing, you stop trying to understand them and start enjoying them instead." I had to know. And what she told me, it changed everything. By the end of this, you'll see men in a whole new way. No more second guessing, just clarity, confidence, and deeper connections. Let's get into it. 1. Men over 70 are far more vulnerable than they let on. For decades, we've been led to believe that men are the strong, steady ones. But if you pay close attention, something shifts as they age. The bravado softens, the ego quiets, and underneath it all, there's a vulnerability they don't always know how to express. I learned this the hard way with my brother. He had always been the rock of our family, proud, self-sufficient, the type who never asked for help. But after his wife passed, I started noticing little things. He'd call just to check in, lingering on the phone a little longer than usual. He'd stop by for coffee, not saying much, but never in a hurry to leave. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then one day he admitted, "It's hard being alone. I don't know how to say it, but it just is." That's when I realized men our age aren't as self-sufficient as they pretend to be. They feel just as lost, just as lonely, just as uncertain, but they've spent a lifetime avoiding those feelings, so they don't always know how to ask for comfort. So what do? We offer it without making it obvious. We listen when they talk. We let them linger. We remind them in quiet ways that they don't have to be the strong one all the time. And let me tell you, when they feel safe enough to let down their guard, the connection deepens in ways you never expected. 2, they don't need fixing. They need acceptance. Women are natural nurturers. We want to help, to solve, to improve. And for years, we've done just that, offering advice, nudging them toward better habits, gently or not so gently, encouraging them to open up. But here's the truth. Men don't want to be projects. They want to be seen and accepted as they are. I learned this lesson with a man I once dated. He had his quirks. He was stubborn about his morning routine, refused to eat anything too healthy, and had a tendency to zone out when I talked about certain things. I'd catch myself thinking, if he would just change this one thing, he'd be so much better. Then one day he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You know what I love about you?" he said. "You make me feel like I'm enough." And that's when it hit me. That's all any of us want, isn't it? When we stop trying to fix them, when we let go of the little things and focus on enjoying who they are instead of who we think they should be, everything shifts. And funny enough, the more accepted they feel, the more they actually do open up, listen better, and make small changes. Not because they have to, but because they want to. 3, they still want to feel wanted, but differently. There's this unspoken belief that romance fades after a certain age, that men stop caring about attraction, that desire dwindles into nothing but companionship. But let me tell you, it's not that they stop wanting to feel desired, it's that they start defining it differently. I once asked a male friend, "What makes you feel loved at this stage in life?" I expected him to say something about physical affection or words of affirmation. Instead, he said, "When a woman is genuinely happy to see me, when she lights up when I walk into the room." That answer stuck with me because it's true, men want to feel wanted, but in a more emotional way now. It's less about grand gestures and more about presence. A simple touch on the arm, a warm smile when they walk in, a "you look good today" tossed their way. These little things tell them, you still matter to me. You still bring something special to my life. And when they feel that, They light up, they soften, they lean in closer in ways they never did before. They carry more regrets than they'll ever admit. Women talk about their past openly. We reflect, we process, we share. Men, they carry their regrets like silent weights, rarely speaking of them, but feeling them all the same. I saw this in my late husband. He was a wonderful man, but there were things he never let go of. Mistakes he made, words he wished he'd said, time he wished he could get back. I used to try to get him to open up, but I learned something. Men don't always need to talk about their regrets. They just need to know they haven't been defined by them. So instead of pushing, I reassured. I reminded him of his kindness, his goodness, the ways he had shown up, even when he thought he hadn't. And in that, I saw the tension in him ease. Because sometimes what men need isn't a deep conversation, it's just someone to say, "You did okay. You are enough." 5. At this stage, they crave peace more than anything. In youth, men chase ambition, status, excitement. But by 70, most of them aren't looking for fireworks anymore. They're looking for peace. I once asked a widowed friend if he was interested in dating again. He hesitated before saying, "I'd love companionship, but I don't want drama. I just want someone I can sit with in the quiet and feel good." That stuck with me because I realized that's what I want too. Men at this stage aren't looking for someone to keep up with them. They're looking for someone to slow down with them, someone they can sit beside at dinner, share a knowing glance, and just be. And when you recognize that, you stop trying to impress, to prove, to chase. Instead, you settle into something richer, something deeper. 6, they want to feel useful, not helpless. Men spend most of their lives defining themselves by what they do, their careers, their responsibilities, their ability to fix things. But as they get older and retirement strips away their professional roles, many struggle with a quiet sense of uselessness. I noticed this with my neighbor Tom. He used to be an engineer, a man who could solve any problem. But after retiring, he seemed restless. Until one day, I asked if he could help me with my leaky faucet. His whole demeanor changed. He lit up, eager to grab his toolbox and get to work. That's when I realized men don't stop wanting to contribute. They just need to know they still can. So whether it's asking for their advice, letting them help with a household task, or simply acknowledging their wisdom, it makes all the difference. It reminds them they are still needed, still valued, still capable. 7, they struggle to express emotion, but that doesn't mean they don't feel deeply. For decades, men were told to be strong, to push down their feelings, to keep emotions in check. So it's no surprise that even now, many struggle to put their feelings into words. I once asked a male friend how he was feeling after a difficult loss. He shrugged and said, "I'm fine," but his eyes told another story. His voice was quieter, his hands fidgeted. He wasn't fine. He just didn't know how to say otherwise. So what do? We pay attention to the unspoken emotions. Instead of forcing words, we offer presence, a touch on the hand, a gentle, "I'm here." Because sometimes men don't need a deep conversation. They just need permission to feel without judgment. 8, their idea of love becomes simpler yet more meaningful. Younger men may chase passion, grand gestures, and whirlwind romance. But older men, they value love in the quiet moments. A friend of mine remarried in her 70s. I asked her what was different about love at this stage, and she said, "He doesn't bring me flowers, but he makes sure my coffee is just the way I like it every morning." That's the shift. Love after 70 isn't about fireworks. It's about the steady glow of warmth and care. a knowing glance across the room, a cup of tea made just right, a reassuring squeeze of the hand. It's love without the need to prove anything, just the quiet certainty of knowing you're there for each other. 9, they need reassurance too. We often assume that men are confident, sure of themselves, unshaken. But here's what I've learned: they doubt themselves just as much as we do. One night, a longtime male friend admitted, "I don't think I'm as interesting anymore. I used to have things to talk about, things to offer." I was stunned. This was a man who had lived an extraordinary life, yet here he was, questioning his own value. That's when I realized men need reassurance just like we do. They need to hear, "You are still interesting. You are still wonderful. You are still you." Because sometimes just one kind word can shift the way they see themselves. 10, they want laughter more than they want perfection. There was a time when I thought keeping up appearances mattered in relationships, that men noticed every wrinkle, every little flaw, but I was wrong. What they notice most? Joy, lightness, laughter. I once spilled coffee all over myself on a lunch date. My first instinct was embarrassment, but instead I laughed. And you know what? He laughed with me. The awkward moment became a shared joke, something that made us both relax. Men aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for ease, playfulness, a sense of humor about life. And when you can laugh together, the connection grows stronger than any attempt at being perfect ever could. 11, they fear being a burden just as much as we do. I once asked a widowed friend why he refused to let his children help him with anything. His answer broke my heart. "I don't want to be a burden." Sound familiar? The same way we hesitate to ask for help, men do too. They don't want to feel like they're losing independence, like they're becoming less than who they once were. So how do we help them without making them feel small? We offer support in ways that protect their dignity. Instead of saying, "Let me do that for you," we say, "I'd love to do this together." Instead of taking over, we invite them in. It's a small shift, but one that allows them to receive care without feeling like they've lost a part of themselves. 12. They crave companionship, even if they won't say it out loud. A dear friend of mine, a widower in his 70s, once confessed, "I don't need romance. I just don't want to eat dinner alone every night." That stuck with me because at this stage, love isn't always about passion. It's about presence, about having someone to share a meal with, to talk about the little things, to simply be together. Some men will never admit to feeling lonely, but their actions say it all. They linger in conversation a little longer. They find reasons to reach out. They light up when you ask about their day. So whether it's a partner, a friend, or even a casual acquaintance, the need for connection never fades. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is simply showing up. 13, they appreciate kindness more than they show. Men have spent a lifetime being told to be strong, to toughen up, to handle things on their own. But deep down, they long for kindness just as much as anyone else. I once saw this in a simple moment. An older gentleman at the grocery store struggling to reach an item on a high shelf. I smiled and offered to grab it for him. He hesitated, then chuckled. "I guess I'm not as tall as I used to be." But as I handed him the can, his face softened. "Thank you," he said, almost too sincerely for such a small gesture. That's when I realized men don't always know how to ask for kindness, but when they receive it, it means more than they let on. Whether it's a warm greeting, a thoughtful gesture, or simply listening without judgment, kindness lingers. It reminds them they're still valued, still seen, still worthy of care. 14. They hold on to old school manners even when they seem outdated. Have you ever noticed how some older men still insist on holding doors open, standing when a woman enters a room, or walking on the curbside of the street? It's not about control, it's about respect. A friend of mine was on a date with a gentleman in his 70s who insisted on paying for dinner. She teased him, saying, women pay for their own meals these days. He smiled and replied, I know, but this is just how I was raised. For many men, these gestures are their way of showing care. It's not about whether we need them to do these things. It's about understanding that, to them, it's a sign of honor. Instead of resisting it, sometimes it's worth simply saying thank you, because accepting kindness is just as important as giving it. 15. They still want to have fun, even if it looks different now. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging men is that they lose their sense of adventure. But that's not true. They may not be jumping out of airplanes, though some still do, but they do still crave excitement, laughter, and new experiences. I once asked a group of men what their idea of fun was at this stage in life. Their answers? Trying a new restaurant, going on a long drive with good music, playing cards with friends and laughing until it hurts. Fun doesn't disappear with age, it just evolves. And when we recognize that, we stop seeing them as set in their ways and start inviting them into experiences that bring joy in fresh, meaningful ways. Here's the truth. Men over 70 aren't as complicated as we think. They want to feel safe, accepted, wanted, and at peace. And the moment we stop overanalyzing, stop second-guessing, and just meet them where they are, everything shifts. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these resonated most? Have you seen these shifts in your own relationships with men? Let's talk about it in the comments. Because trust me, this is a conversation we all need to have.